The Bread and Butter Collective is a collection of hospitality professionals working together to help strengthen our industry to build strong culture, community, and sustainability.
I'm Calen McNeil.
And I'm Sam Jones. And this is the Bread and Butter Podcast. Well, welcome to the Bread and Butter Podcast. I'm Sam Jones, and from afar is
Calen McNeil.
Wow.
How you doing, Sam?
Calen, I'm great. Where are you? I mean, you seem so you're not here in the studio. I'm in your chair. I feel like I'm taking over, but why? Where are you?
I know. I feel alone right now.
Aww.
I feel you're sitting in my chair. I don't think I'm important anymore.
Oh, no. Brother, I'm just keeping it warm for you. I'm keeping it warm.
Oh, good.
You know, someone's got to do that.
Someone's got to do it. Yeah, no, I'm in, it's going to sound strange, but I'm actually in Las Vegas, Nevada. Yeah, so there's a little thing I do every year, or did up until COVID. It's been canceled the last 2 years, but they've postponed it this year. It's called the World Series of Poker. Something I've been doing for, like I said, 20 years. And they did mandatory vaccinations for this. And that was the main reason why I decided to come down. I wouldn't have come had there not been mandatory vaccinations. And there's mask mandates in Nevada right now too, which also help. But yeah, I decided to lean into my vaccine status and come down and play some poker.
And your poker prowess as well. I mean, I've heard rumors about how you play poker, but I mean, being not a poker player myself, I don't really understand what makes a good poker player or not. Have you got any insight? You've been playing forever. What makes a good poker player, Calen?
Well, it's a combination of a bunch of things. You have to have patience. You have to have a bit of a understanding of gamemanship. And obviously you have to have money. So to play, there's different types of poker too. There's different variants of the games. So a lot of people are familiar with No Limit Texas Hold'em. I play that, but mostly I play Pot Limit Omaha and Pot Limit Omaha Split, high-low. So half the pot goes to the high hand, half the pot goes to the low hand. And then mixed games, like there's a game called Horse, which is, Omaha, Raz, Stud, Stud 8, and Limit Hold'em. So there's a very, the poker world has a number of games, and I basically do the tournament end of it where you put in your buy-in and then you play down to the money, and it usually pays 15%. So if you get if you get into the top 15%, it starts at double your buy-in back and then goes all the way up to about, the winner gets usually around 20% of the prize pool. So if the prize pool is $1 million, the winner will get 200,000.
Wow. Yeah. When I heard you were going and when you left, I was trying to follow you and trying to see online if I could see you playing poker. Like I got this picture of you with a cigar at the poker table, with a bunch of dogs around you and playing this game. And I was looking for that online, and I realized what you're going to is like a multi-week, hundreds of people, tons of different games, like different rooms to host different games. I could not believe the complexity of what I was trying to see, and I didn't see any of it because it was a lot for me to take in.
Yeah, it's at a convention center at the Rio Hotel. So it takes place in 4 or 5 massive rooms. And every room's got different types of tournaments going on, different events. Culminating in the main, which is called the Amazon room, where they do the live streaming and the television version. So they pretty much only televise the final tables. And in years previous, there was a lot more media and a lot more people. Obviously, because of COVID, it's a bit of a unique year. In a typical year, you'd have reporters that are reporting hands of each event, and there's 2 to 3 events a day that they report on. So every event, every bracelet event, World Series of Poker bracelet event, and I believe this year there's 78, They track each event, and they'll go through, the name players, the known players, and then if anybody else that gets going deep into the money and at the final table. So this year there's less reporters. There's as many tournaments, so the coverage is not as good. So that's why you can't get the coverage. But normally in a typical year, you'd get decent coverage. And next week for me is kind of the bigger week where all the events that I like to play are going. I've played a few events so far, but I've basically just been trying to rest for next week because of the way the schedule works. You start playing in the afternoons and you play deep into the morning. So, and I'm also trying to do some work and, that kind of stuff. So it makes for a harried schedule.
Wow, I bet. I'm trying to figure out how you try to navigate weeks of playing to come up with an outcome. Where does your mind go? Do you start the tournament thinking about the outcome that you want and work backwards, or do you take every game that you play as a step towards an outcome? Like I'm trying to figure it because it's so big and complex, like a business would be, and I'm trying to
Totally.
I'm trying to think if you're put yourself out in the future and then bring yourself back and figure out how to get there, or how does the poker mind work?
It's the exact same thing as starting a business, I guess, would be the best comparison. You start with a bankroll, so you come with a certain amount of money.
Mm-hmm.
So you can kind of then, work backwards on what tournaments you can buy in with that money. So the money that you bring isn't all the money that you're going to have, because the idea is that you're going to win money while you're here. So you might not win life-changing money, but if you finish in the money, usually you finish in the money about 20% of the time. So if you play 10 tournaments, you're going to cash in 2 of them. So the idea is to cash as deep as possible, which gets you as much money as possible, I guess. So if you win a tournament, for example, you might win anywhere between $100,000 and $1 million. So if you come down and you win your first tournament, and say it's $1,000 buy-in tournament and it's a big field and the first prize is 300,000, then you've pretty much set up your business for the duration. So sometimes you start with a small budget where you might come down with $5,000 or $3,000 and play some of the smaller buy-in tournaments, and then build your way up to buy into a $5,000 tournament or a $10,000 tournament. And then you can turn your fortunes, or small fortune into a bigger fortune if you're doing that. Now, the whole thing around it is money management, which is very similar to business. So, you want to make sure that the money you do bring, you could cover your expenses and your food, and, much like, your rent and your staffing costs and your overhead, you need to make sure you cover that. So when you're maneuvering through the tournaments, you have enough money to support your overhead, like your room and your food and your drinks and all that type of stuff. So
I thought all that was free in Vegas.
No, the rumors
is that old Vegas I'm thinking about, where
listen,
they give you free drinks?
If you come down and lose like thousands of dollars, you get stuff for free. So they give you the illusion that it's free, but you're basically paying for it with your losses.
Okay.
So they know you're high stakes. And listen, the thing about poker, and this is the reason why I like it, is because it's a mental game. There's a physical component of it because it's mentally exhausting, and you have to be the better players are actually in shape. But the idea of, the traditional gambling where you're going to be, rolling the dice and sports betting, and that it's not really a part of poker. I mean, poker is a variant of gambling, no question, but you're really playing against the other players. So that's one of the reasons why I like the tournament poker better, because it's very strategy driven. So there's different, inflections throughout the tournament where it's correct to fold, or you need to put more pressure, or if you get a bigger stack, you want to try to preserve your stack so that you can survive longer in the tournament, because it's a game of survival, right? So there's a ton of strategy that goes into it. And again, it's very similar to business. I've learned a lot of my business acumen as a result of poker, and I've benefited in poker because of some business acumen too. And with decision-making process, and decision-making comes down to what tournament you're going to buy in. Like, do you have an advantage in that tournament? Like, what is the field strength? So do I have an edge against that field? There's certain tournaments if I don't know the game, like deuce to seven or Badoogie or some of these weird variants of poker I've never played before. So I'm not going to go buy a $2,000 buy-in tournament for those games because I don't know how to play them. So you try to put your money where your best results are. And then when it comes to the decision-making process around poker, it's, you basically have very limited information and you have to make some decisions that have real money consequences, much like business. So,
Right.
You don't necessarily know the outcome. I mean, you always have hopeful outcomes, like to answer your question about your planning process. You could be, oh, I really want to win this tournament. Well, let's not start with winning. Let's make it through day one, right? Or let's make it to the dinner break, so that you play for 8 hours and then you have an hour and a half dinner break. Okay, great. Let's do that. Then once dinner break's over, you evaluate the situation. How much, how big is my chip stack? What's the likelihood of me making it to the end of the day? And then make the end of the day your next goal. So you make it to the end of the day. The next day is the money day. That's when you usually make the money. So that's where your next priority is, just to make the money. So every decision you make is unique. So you don't want to be making a decision because there's a lot of luck in poker, just like there's a lot of luck in life.
Yeah.
But good decisions bring you good luck, and I think that is the very good comparable to business.
Yeah. So the opportunities are there with the luck, and when you are open and the table, the lay of the land, the rules really well, you're able to make better judgment calls. And
Yeah.
is kind of like in life and in business, you are making judgment calls all the time based on your experience, and you're hoping for a bit of good luck to run alongside of you.
The thing about it is, in life, you can't control luck. The only thing you control is the decisions that you make.
Mm-hmm.
So in poker, when you say, for example, you have two aces, so you're like, oh, that's the best starting hand. That. So logically, you're like, okay, I know that two aces is the best starting hand I can get. So then it doesn't matter what hand you're against, that your hand's better to start. But then the board comes out, and then you're like, okay, that changes a lot of things. So if this guy or girl who's playing is a good player or a bad player, will determine how I play that hand. Like my perception of what their skills are. I'll play it differently against a better player that I think is better, or a player that I think is worse. I might play it a little bit differently. So the other thing about it is that a pair of deuces can call you, and there could be a deuce on the flop. So then they've got three deuces, and you've only got two aces. Even though ace is the best starting hand, the board changes things. So, and in business, that is the exact same thing too. Is like the environment changes. So you have to make a different decision based on the board texture and how that person is now playing. So put those two hands against each other, the aces are going to win 80% of the time, and the deuces are going to win 20% of the time. So that's the stats, that's the math around it. But once the board comes out, then there's a totally different strategy, because you have to adjust. So just like when you build your new business plan, okay, I'm going to have this location, I'm going to have this size, I'm going to have these employees, I'm going to have, this much in sales. And then you get there and there's a snowstorm, right? So now all of a sudden you have to readjust all of your planning in order to proceed. And the better poker players adjust their strategies in the game so that they can either maximize their wins or minimize their losses, which I guess is the same as maximizing their wins. So there's a ton of similarities, and that's kind of where I get at with the business analogies with it. And also when I'm sitting there with aces, I'm thinking, oh man, I'm going to win a big pot. But there's no guarantee I'm going to win a big pot. I could lose a big pot because that's a big hand. So if I overplay it or put too much money in, when the board texture tells me, oh, alarm bells, I should worry, but there's hands that could beat me, then you're making mistakes. But you can't assume. So, it happened to me that in one of the tournaments this time, I had aces and I had to win an opportunity to win a massive pot, and he flopped three deuces. So the exact example, but all the money was in pre-flop. I didn't worry about, I lost the hand and my stack went from 100,000 to 50,000, but emotionally you have to just move on from that hand because you did everything correct. So
you just lost a car? $50,000 is a car, brother.
No. 50,000 chips.
Oh, okay.
Yeah.
Okay.
So in tournament poker, the chips don't equate to dollars necessarily. As you get closer to the end, when there's only 6 or 7 players left, the dollar value of those chips are worth more. But at the beginning, that particular one was a $500 buy-in tournament. So, the chips don't equal the $500.
I was going to say, even at $50,000, I'm booking it out of Vegas and coming home. Like, I win.
I'm a win for sure. Yeah. But the point of the story is that you can't get caught up on the luck, because the luck is a part of it. So what you try to do, the fact that I was still alive after that, was because I did a lot of work to get to 100,000 chips. So now I only have 50,000 chips, but now I just have to have the 50,000 chip mentality. Like when I have 100,000 chips, I can afford to lose 50,000 and not be out of the tournament. So, that's bankroll management's a lot like managing your budget in your business, and you take bigger risks when you have a bigger war chest.
Right. You kind of live in the gap of where you're like, if it was me thinking that I had the opportunity for that $100,000, but I was only working with a $50,000 budget, but I'm thinking out here, I'm in that gap somewhere, and I'm not really doing what I need to do at my $50,000 level.
100%. And then what you do is you're just relying on luck at that point, right? So if you're acting like you have a $100,000 budget, but you really only have a $50,000 budget, you're actually taking a lot of gamble. So, just like poker, like if this is a real life analogy with business, you can be successful by taking those gambles and those shots, but you're relying much more on luck than you are about, critical analysis of the data or information that will make you successful long term. And if your attitude is to risk the 50 when you really need 100, you're going to make those decisions. Even when you get to 100, you're then going to be risking again, because you have a predisposition to gamble with it rather than make decisions based on the information you're getting or proper, business, technique, I guess would be the question. So in anything, there's gamble and there's risk, and people's tolerance levels change depending on, how much money they have, and also if they can afford to lose the money they've got. So if you're supporting a family like you did when you started your business, you couldn't afford to go, get a bricks and mortar right away. You started with the trailer and, or cart. And then, so you scale up. If you're doing it smartly, you scale up slowly, and maybe take the odd shot. Like maybe you get an extra cart, after you get your bricks and mortar spot, or don't sell your cart, but keep it. So you're making all these, in-game or in-business decisions daily and weekly, to try to build, your base of business so that you can survive for the long term. So it's no different than a poker tournament. It's the exact same mentality that goes into it.
Well, and I can see that, and like I said, I know nothing about poker. I know a lot about gambling, though, and because I feel that in business we're always gambling. An entrepreneur is gambling with their livelihood. They're gambling with their business, their employees' livelihoods, their families' livelihoods, all of that. And somehow I don't have a problem with that kind of gambling, but you couldn't get me to put $20 down on a table and say 22 red. Like, I would never do that. I can't. It's not in my mindset.
Do you want me to put 20? Do you want me to put $20 and 22 red? I can do it this afternoon. In fact, I will, and I'll let you know how that goes.
Oh, see, I would never say to do it, because I don't want you to lose $20 on my behalf, and I don't want to have to owe you $20. But I'd love the $10,000 payout from that.
Exactly.
Right.
But do you get the comparison though? Like, when you think you're not a gambler, you actually are a gambler.
I do get the comparison, but I don't understand why there's a split between them. I mean, maybe it's experience.
Like the stigma?
Is it a stigma? I mean, yeah, possibly there is a bit of a stigma when it comes to cash gambling versus entrepreneurial gambling. But there's got to be something more than that, because, I mean, I do all kinds of things that that have a stigma attached to them. In fact, those are my favorite things to do.
Yeah.
But
that'll be the after hours episode.
Yeah, we're going to talk about Vegas later. But really, it's it's really intriguing to me to find out and to question myself as to why I'm comfortable doing one kind of gambling, which feels to me has such an overall impact on my general life. It takes up all the time in my day, the gambling that I
Yeah.
do, whereas I can't seem to be able to gamble in a very small way, like in a poker game or with $20. And I'm wondering if you because you're so well versed in both of those situations, if you know or have some insight as to why that would be. Why can't I take
Well,
those smaller chances?
I think it comes down to it comes down to focus as well, like, and the idea of why you're doing something. So obviously it's intuitive, and sometimes it just comes from the gut, the entrepreneurship and the idea that you want to grow a business and work for yourself and things like that. So when it comes to gambling or poker in general, I'm going to refer to it as poker because I really don't gamble on much anything else. I really leave my gambling to poker. um, once years ago, and when I first started playing poker, I think it was like 2004, and I was at a poker table and I was playing with a guy who had obviously played a long time, and he might have even been on some TV tables that I'd seen. And he was talking about how he just lost $50,000 betting on some game. I think it was like the football game or something. And then now he was sitting there playing $1,000 buy-in tournament, already stuck $1,000, or sorry, already stuck 50,000. So how can he focus on what he's doing, right? And I think there's very different mindset when you're playing. So it's going to be a bit of a detailed answer to the question, but when you have to compartmentalize what you're doing and understand why you're doing anything. So I play poker because I like games. So I originally started playing chess when I was a kid. Then I got exposed to online poker. I've always been a gamesman when it comes to it. And then the application of the decision making tree and focusing on how you make decisions and odds and percentages and statistics really intrigued me in poker. I was always interested in business, so I just immediately saw a lot of parallels between the two things. And very early on, I started seeing my decision making that I've learned from poker really come into play in my business, where I really evaluated risk differently, and that helped me in business. So both of them, and as my businesses succeeded, so did my poker. So I got more successful in both at the same time. So I think the idea of the stigma, if you put the stigma aside, the other comparison that comes up a lot is stock market and betting, or not betting, I call it gambling in the stock market, because
Sure.
people are prepared to make investments in companies that they know very little about. So they either leave it up to themselves or just leave it up to a tip that they got. But they'll do $1,000, it'll bet 5,000, and maybe it'll go to zero. The odd, very small percentage, it'll go up, right? Maybe they'll get a home run. But that's the same as poker, except I get to make all the decisions. So I get to make the investment in the poker tournament, and then I get to control the outcome as best I can. And just like in the stock market, there's a lot of luck in that. And there's also a lot of things that happen behind the scenes that control it. And you don't always know if the information you're hearing is true. In poker, it's the same idea. Like, people could be bluffing you, but you just take all that information and you make decisions. So your money manager in the investment field would be making those decisions for you, but they're actually just making the best decision they can with the information they have. So that's no different than poker. It's the exact same comparison.
Okay.
So, but I have to do the work. So it'd be just like if you manage your own portfolio. So for me, I've made a fair amount of money playing poker. I have no investments at all in the stock market. So I've chosen a different way because I get a lot of enjoyment, and there's also a lot of strategy and competitiveness that I get out of it. So the stigma, there's no stigma in being a stockbroker, but if I said I was a professional poker player, they'd be like, oh, first they're intrigued, I think, but then they're like, oh, well, so you go to Vegas, you're in these smoky rooms, you play, with these degenerate gamblers and all this stuff. And I'm like, yeah, but that's kind of what a stockbroker does, in a different way.
Do it
But
in
yet,
a suit.
yeah, but yet they're on, in New York and Wall Street, and I'm in Las Vegas or LA or New Jersey or somewhere in a smoky casino playing.
Right.
But I guess that's a really good comparison as far as that goes.
Yeah, no, it is, and
But
that was kind of based on taking the stigma out of it. And when you said that, I kind of realized that, yeah, you're right. It is a stigma more
yeah,
because, and then Kyle was so kind as to point out that it really made me feel like, oh yeah, it's a stigma maybe that slows me down. Is that a casino always feels like it's got the odds stacked against you, right? Like to go to Vegas, Vegas is built on losers, they say,
yeah,
not the winners. And so it does have that stigma in my mind. And, it's so part of how I feel about gambling, I guess, that I didn't think about it as a stigma, but I think it is. I think it feels
it
like
for sure
I've got
is.
more control over my business, or that I would have more control over in the investment in the stock market, even though both the casino and the stock market could both be considered to be rigged against you in some way.
Yes, totally. And I think it all depends on your perspective because you're right. The casino Vegas is built on losing players and or people losing money.
Yeah, sorry, not
But
losers, because
no, no, no,
obviously
not
people who
no,
lose
no, no, no,
money
for
aren't
sure.
losers.
No, not necessarily, but there's a very dark side to gambling, and I would never suggest people do it blindly or without forethought. And the same thing, I guess, to some degree, there's less stigma again, but in the stock market, you got to know what you're doing to play in that field. You got to know what you're doing to play in this field too. Like you can't come to Vegas and start playing slots and start playing craps and blackjack and sports betting and all of those things without being aware of what the risks are. So understanding that in blackjack you can get the best edge you can get, I think, is around 48% or 47%. So the house always has an edge on you. In slots it's more like 40%, so the house has a 60% edge. It's built in, it's programmed into
Right.
the computer. So you need to go there knowing that if you go with $1,000 you are prepared to just kiss that thousand. It really is entertainment. So
Yeah.
but I would never sit and advocate entertainment, like gambling for entertainment either, because it's a slippery slope, right? And a lot of these games are designed to kind of entrap people into, and it's much like Facebook, frankly, and all those social media companies are use the same kind of algorithms to trick your brain into the dopamine. And that's exactly what the slot machines do, and with the lights and the flashy things. And that's the same thing with social media, keeping you on there. So
Yeah.
all those same techniques that Vegas has used for years are embedded in a lot of the social media, and the games that are online. Like Candy Crush is a prime example. Like Candy Crush is, I don't know if you've heard of Candy Crush. I think it's a
I'm actually
online.
playing it right now while we're talking. I'm
Yes,
sorry.
yeah, exactly. Because you're
Oh,
addicted.
I'll put that down.
You're addicted, and then they make you buy these little tokens and stuff.
Mm,
And it's exactly like, because my girlfriend plays it, and I'm like, you understand that you are doing gambling. And she's like, it's a game. And I go, yeah, but you buy these tokens, and then it's $200 and $50, but you get no return. All you get is the dopamine out of it.
yeah.
So it's unlike, at least with us with the slots, you were going to win 40% of the time. But some people are just lucky. My mom worked in the casino in Kamloops for years when I was already grown up, but I have two younger stepbrothers, and she worked in the casino for, I think, 10 years. And she said there's a certain people that win. Even though statistically, if you played every day, you'd win 40% of the time over your course of your lifetime. There are some people that just are luckier than others. Um, and in poker,
Uh,
some people are just a little bit luckier than others too. But the thing I like about poker is you really are in control of the math. So, because there's, 52 cards in a deck, you can, how many cards are there. You see the, other people's cards. Sometimes you see the board, so you know what cards they don't have. Then you can kind of put them on a range of hands and bring it down, so you can narrow the luck. So how does my hand that I have in my hand play against a range of hands? So if there's two people left in the pot, including me, so there are two other people, so there's three people, there's six cards, right? So I can put them on a range of hands that, and how their hands play against my hand will dictate how I proceed and with the percentage of win I will have. So my hand may play 50% against their hands. So my trick is to get them to fold, or the trick is, if I have a really good hand, is to disguise the strength of my hand until the end, and then get them to put all their money in, or as much as their money as possible. And when I say money, it's chips. So because I play tournament poker, so there is also cash games where you can do the same thing with actual real people's money. I don't play those as much. I'd rather play with people who have a capped loss. So when you buy into a tournament, the most they can lose is the buy-in of the tournament, not keep digging into their pocket. So
that
not
does
all
feel nicer, doesn't it?
It does.
It's not so dark.
It's not so dark, and it's not that I've seen the darkness of it. I've seen people who I know are paying they're using their rent to gamble, and it is a small percentage, but it is a big enough percentage to concern me as a gamesman, and also, compassionate citizen. So I've got to be, I'm always aware of those type of situations. And there's a lot of really good people in the poker community. Some of my best friends that I still have today, a lot of my best friends are from that community. And there's a lot of unique experiences, just like, the Bread and Butter Collective, where we're all in the restaurant, we're all struggling to a certain degree. And we all work together to try to make it better for all of us. It's the same in a poker community, because we're all strategizing and figuring out how we can make our group of friends stronger together. And so there's a lot of similarities, and I don't know. So, I love it.
So the more you know about whatever game it is you're gambling with, the more you're able to kind of narrow the focus of the luck that is out there. So say if you're only going to win 40% of the time, and in business, most hospitality businesses close within the first X amount of years that they're open. I think it's 3 in Canada or something. Yeah. So those are the odds against you. So in both gambling and opening up a business, you're taking those odds, you're trying to learn as much about the environment around you and the intricacies of what you're doing, whether it's a business or a poker game. And the more you know, the more narrow you can focus your luck, and hopefully you're more open to that luck. Is that kind of how that works, Calen?
That you summed it up beautifully, Sam. Like, that's exactly how it works. So yeah, I actually couldn't have explained it better.
Well, it's actually on the terms of use on the Candy Crush app. I've been reading that while we've been talking, actually.
That's hilarious. That's so hilarious. But yeah, further to that point, in business, as you said, most restaurants go out of business in 3 years. So depending on, you can finance businesses many different ways. You can borrow money, you can, bootstrap it and just try to get some revenue going. And you can keep financing it, and keep going into debt. Yeah, just like gambling. And then at some point you're in too deep, you can't get out, and then you've got to take your losses, and you either go bankrupt, or you lose, your parents' money, or you lose your life savings. So the same feeling that goes into it is in the mindset it's the exact same. Like, I've had so many parallel, feelings playing poker, and I've come down here with a sizable amount of money and lost it all several times. I've also come down here with very little money and won a lot of money. So it's like a microcosm of the bigger picture. I mean, the lifespan between starting a business and ending a business, if it's in the hospitality, say it's 3 years, but say you go 6 or 7 years and you have complications that come up and you end up still failing or closing, that's a long period of your life. I can come down here for a month and have, highs and lows through that whole cycle for that month. But then I get to go, leave it. It's not gonna be, once I leave Vegas, it's not gonna be attached to me, So
Right. So
I,
your business plan for Vegas is a month-long business plan. There's a start, there's
yeah,
an end.
exactly. So I totally, and there's times where, I go with a really big business plan, and, I'm willing to bet a lot of money on the games I do know. So I won a Omaha high-low bracelet, which is a World Series of Poker victory kind of thing.
Oh,
So, um, I am willing to bet on myself in that game. So I will bet. I've gone and played $10,000 buy-ins in that event, whereas I wouldn't do that. I have done it, but I'm less likely to spend $10,000 on a no limit hold'em event, or 10,000 on a Raz event or something like that, because I just don't have an edge. Just like, if you're going to have better success in business if you have a team around you, or if you have the knowledge. So just like we talk about in restaurants, particularly food, and in a large degree in coffee as well, is the craftsmanship of, the kind of the brains and the artistry behind it. So the chef in a restaurant case, or a roaster in a coffee case, they've got the skills to make the product, but then you also have to match it with the skills to make money from it, and to be, to market it, to, manage your books, to manage the human resources that's required to be successful, navigate banking relationships and leasing negotiations. And it's very complicated. So, there's, just like coming down here is very complicated. The more you understand and have the broader base of knowledge, and it always comes with a budget, like understanding what your budget is, and not going where you can, not going into debt over it. That's not always possible, because, again, that's like the gamble of an entrepreneur, is you've got to roll the dice. So sometimes you have to take those risks,
right.
but you want to try to, decrease the bad results. So, and that's where a lot of people in business do not do enough risk assessment. So they oversell the upside, and, where they actually need to be very, very cautious and oversell the risk. And that's actually where you reversing that is where you're going to find your success. You have to be, it's a balancing act, because you can't be too risk averse not to take some chances, but you have to understand, or have an idea, what are the odds of losing in that scenario. Like, okay, what is the worst case scenario? Start there, and then work your ways backwards. Just like for me,
Right.
I come down here and I'm like, okay, what if I lose everything? Okay, well, that's going to cost me $15,000, for example. So I'm like, okay, am I prepared to lose 15,000? Well, no, I really want to only lose 10. Okay, so take that tournament out, unless you win. So if you're having success, then you can, double down and reinvest in yourself, right? But if you're not having success and you continue to try to reinvest in yourself, you're really just digging a deeper hole, without fixing the leaks in your game or in your business plan, right? That are causing the problems. Like every problem you have, there's a reason for it. So trying to determine what that reason is will help you succeed, help you minimize your losses and maximize your gains.
Right.
But if you're just going in, all my product, I have the best product, I have the best pizza, I have the best, cannelloni or whatever, and you're just marching off the cliff without really listening to the information that's coming back. Like, people aren't buying it. Maybe your customer service is bad, maybe your location is bad, maybe so you always got to be evaluating, the state of play, so to speak, in your business.
Right.
And that's exact comparison to what happens down here too.
So if you go down to
for the people that are paying attention.
Yeah. If you go down to Vegas and you've got a budget, and you just start to play every game, you have no focus, you're spreading yourself really thin. And much like business, if you have the best pizza and all of a sudden you're like, oh, you know what? Everyone's asking me for burgers and blackberry pies, and all of a sudden you start following the shiny things. That's never a good way to run your business. You should always be focused on what you know best and how to make it the best way you can.
Exactly.
That sounds like that's the same kind of thing in Vegas where you're at. You're not going around, like, you're pretty focused on your Omaha high-low games, unless there's a good opportunity that you've thought about and you've got the money and the backing to go play this other game, but it doesn't take away from your focus on your Omaha games in the
No,
tournament.
exactly. Your core business model and your core product is always going to be the best one to lean into. It's also going to mean that you decrease the risk the most because you are the expert in it. So you come to the table with a whole bunch of information and knowledge that you wouldn't have if you started switching into burgers, for example.
Right.
You know, because you're like, oh, someone's asking for burgers. Well, they're not an expert in burgers, or they'd open up a burger joint. Now they're asking me to open burgers, right? Just like being down here, oh, come play this tournament over here. I'm like, okay, well, I don't know how the rules of the game, or I mean, it's intuitive, so I can kind of like, well, I can cook a burger. I have the equipment, like I have the skills, I know the chips, I know to gamble, I know the betting, and so I could play. But is that going to lead to my success? Like, am I going to be more successful for doing that or less?
Right.
Then you make a decision. Are you prepared to lose that money? Right. So are you prepared to lose the money selling burgers when you switch from doing your core business of pizza or whatever it is?
And most people don't think about that. They just see the shiny and they go for it. They don't make those kinds of determinations ahead of time, where I think a person who's really into gambling would be more prepared to see ahead and to make those risk
they'd
assessments.
Understand the risk.
Yeah,
exactly.
They'd
understand the risk, and they'd be prepared to take the risk. Just like when you put all your money in with aces, you know you're going to lose probably 80% of the time. Or sorry, you're going to lose 20% of the time. You should win 80% of the time, but you're still going to lose 20% of the time. So that's a fair assessment, risk assessment. But if you're going to be putting 100% of everything you own on this earth into that, you probably would need to be more around 95 to 98% or even 99%.
Yeah, I'd want to be pretty sure.
And this is like getting back to what's going on in the world today is COVID, right? So if you look at it and you think of the percentage of people that actually get COVID and also have a bad result, like the risk of getting a free vaccine, right? Versus the risk, even if it's only, a 90% risk or 95% risk of actually contracting COVID, and then a 98% risk of having a serious result. Like, why would you take that risk? Like, when you could have a very easy, the answer sitting in front of you, right? And that's the exact same thing with poker. Like, no game is perfect. Like, there's no guarantee of winning, but if you're playing well and you know the game really well, there's a really good chance you're going to make money. So that is way less than just like when you open a business, you're like, okay, I'm opening a burger joint and there's no burger joints in 5 miles and people have been craving burgers and I'm just going to put the best burger down. I'm probably got a 90% chance to be successful. I can still mess it up.
Yeah.
I can still make bad business decisions. I could take bad partnerships. I could hire bad staff, but the idea of your business plan being successful is very supportable because of those reasons. So you've determined what the risks are. You've surveyed the lay of the land. You've applied your knowledge in that area, and you've made a decision. I think I can do it well. But so many people just skip over all the roadblocks and red flags in bad partnership deals, or in like, oh, I'm going to make burgers when you really are a person that should be doing flowers. I don't know. Right. But you follow maybe a passion, always this idea of owning a restaurant or this idea of owning a coffee shop or something. You really got to do your research to do it. Otherwise, you're gambling.
Well,
right?
And it would be
really
like,
gambling.
Being unprepared, opening up a business and thinking that you're just going to be like the guy who gets to greet all his friends and drink all night with your friends at the bar because you own a restaurant. It's the same guy who's going to go down to Vegas and think that it's going to be like a James Bond movie. You're going to walk into Monte Carlo and everyone's rich and fabulous. It's just not the case, is it? I mean, I haven't been to Vegas, but I assume it's not Monte Carlo from a James Bond movie.
No. I'm wearing a hoodie and shorts.
Thank goodness you're still you, brother.
Yeah, that's right. It won't change me.
No, it won't. But that makes me think about the people who go to these tournaments. Would you? And I don't know, are there statistics? Do you get a feeling of if these people are also entrepreneurial in their other lives, or are they just or is this just the one part of their life generally where they feel good about taking risks and doing this kind of thinking, or are they more along the lines of an entrepreneur who this is also they're just good at this kind of thinking and it's another outlet for them? Do
Yeah,
you see a
I
comparison?
yeah, there's a cross section, of course, but by and large, there's a lot of business people that play poker at some of the higher stakes and also the lower stakes too, um, that are very similar to me as far as getting the work is great and that challenge is good, but I get a lot of the same buzz and feeling that I get out of business and entrepreneurship that I get playing poker. So there is a whole segment cross section of people that are in that category with me. I see run into them all the time. I mean, I think I can name 6 or 7 people that I've played with for the last 15 years that are entrepreneurs that come and play that I know personally. And then there's another section which are kind of the grinders. They have their day jobs and they're working and they like to take their shots. They're interested in the game of it. And tournament poker is very unique because of that. Because you can cap your losses and it's not like you can't really go broke playing tournament poker. I mean, I guess technically you could. You just put your last dollar in one tournament, but it doesn't have the same degeneracy as either cash games or other casino games that are out there where you literally they prey on you to lose as much money as possible so they can build these fancy casinos that they then either go bankrupt in or sell to some hedge fund or something down the road. But yeah, there's a good cross section. I mean, I've met a lot of really interesting. I used to play with the owner of the LA Lakers, the owner of the LA Raiders. He plays a fair amount. There's a lot of uber successful. Renee Angelil, Celine Dion's husband, I used to play with regularly before he passed. There's a lot of those type of people that are there and they're just doing tournaments and they're not degenerate gamblers by any stretch, but they just like the thrill of the decision making and you just got to apply a lot of real life things into the game, which is it's good for me. I mean, I missed it. I don't play when I'm at home. I just play basically in the summertime when they have the World Series. So it's been extended because of COVID. So it's in the fall now. But
So you aren't at home online playing poker all night long,
no,
coming to work
no,
blurry eyed.
no, 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 no.
I didn't
I'm
think
not
so.
saying I've never done that, but I don't. Like it's been years since I've spent a lot of time playing online. But it's something that I enjoy. The live experience of it. Like I enjoy coming down. I enjoy just playing and meeting with people. I mean, that's the one thing that I missed a lot, and it's so nice because it's double vaccinated down here. I would never have come if it wasn't, but I know that it's a safe place to play, and I get to see a bunch of friends that I've had for years and play a game that I love. So it's really really good. So this is the cleaner. No service today, please. Thank you. If there was any doubt that I was in a
Oh my God.
hotel room.
I'm glad. Oh man. Well, geez, I have learned so much about poker. I didn't think actually. I didn't think there would be so much connection. I mean, I keep hearing about game theory and how poker is an analogy for business and life, and I've never been talked through it as detailed as we just talked through it. And I think I
I think
really
I'm the
understand it. And I really also love, and I had no idea that tournament poker you can cap your losses. I mean,
yeah
to me, that's a game changer. I would be really interested in doing something like that if I knew what the worst outcome could be. Then I'm
yeah
in almost.
yeah
And
I
I've also never. I don't want to say this because this public record now. I've never really wanted to go to Vegas, but as soon as I knew you were going, I was like, I had this urge to go to Vegas with you. I want to be there so badly, and just to hang out with you a little bit, but to be there, well, I know someone doing something there, just
Yeah,
made it
no,
real
it's
all of a sudden. I all of a sudden really wanted to go. So I'm there
yeah.
with you in spirit, at least.
Thanks. One of the things that, just to wrap up, I'll just talk a little bit about elaborate just a bit on the game theory part of it,
Thank
and
you.
this idea that is prevalent in society now, which is called zero sum. Okay, so in game theory, the idea that there's a winner and a loser. Certain games there is a winner and a loser, but many games it's zero sum. So poker is another example of zero sum. So you don't necessarily have to be a loser or a winner. You both can. There in certain hands there's winners and losers, but you both can win. Like it doesn't mean one person has to win everything and the other person loses everything, right? Person can lose a little bit and a guy can gain, or girl can gain a little bit, and vice versa. And in the world today, people have this idea that their political views or their economic views or whatever, if it's right or wrong, right? Like which is gets us in the place where we put into like separate tribes. And just because you believe this, like if you're left leaning or right leaning, you're wrong. Like, and it's just wrong. And life isn't zero sum, and that's where if we can just bring people back to understanding there isn't a bunch of winners and a bunch of losers. There's just a bunch of human beings that are just trying to navigate the best that they can. But the idea that you're losing just because someone else is winning is very negative, and it's very wrong, because there in some cases, if you're on the very extremes, there is no good ideas. But if you get into the middle where life really finds happiness and compromise and community, is understanding that you may win today but I might win tomorrow, or let's find that compromise where it's a win-win, because win-wins, if you think you're dealing with a lose-lose, how do you ever find a win-win? You can't, because you automatically go to the point where if they are right, I'm wrong, or if I'm right, they have to be wrong.
Right.
But you don't actually look and hear and listen to where you can be right and you guys can both win, right? And I think that's what the idea of game theory is around. You can have a zero sum, and you can and not have a zero sum, and life is not zero sum. And at the poker table at the end there's one winner, but there's a whole slew of people that did make money and also had a bunch of entertainment and fun along the way. So it doesn't necessarily mean that you're going to lose. And I think that's an important idea and concept that people should be reminded of more, is that just because your neighbor votes for a conservative or an NDP, or they don't believe in climate change or this, there is a middle ground, and the only way you can get there is if you actually talk and you listen and you don't just view them as wrong. And I think that's something that I've learned of through poker, and also life in general, is that life isn't zero sum.
I love that, and you
Yeah.
know what, I need to play more games because
I got
I
a poker
that
game
is
for you,
such,
Sam.
yeah, great. Well, that's it's such a great analogy, really, because I always think in gambling you win or you lose, and it's
Yeah,
black and white. But when I stop to think about it, thank you for making me stop and think, Calen.
yeah,
That you can have one big winner at a table and a bunch of other people who also won, and
yeah,
perhaps they lost a bit of money, but they didn't lose through the experience. And it's not,
exactly.
yeah. Oh, that's
Well, and
that's
they've
a real
learned.
nice thought. I like that.
They've enjoyed their time and they've learned something. I mean, I've put in, like, I don't even know how many hours, 50,000 hours playing poker. So I've invested a lot in the knowledge I have in that particular game. So which has led me to win more than I lose. But there's periods where you can go 2 or 3 years where you don't win. So the idea that I don't know anything about poker is not true. That would be zero sum. Is like, just because I lost for this last 3 years means I'm a loser. That's not the case. They'll go through. Maybe the next 3 years I'll win for the entire time. I mean, you go in these little spurts, but it doesn't mean that I don't view myself as a loser. I gain so much out of the experiences I have down here. And because I also go there with the knowledge that I'm prepared to lose the money I bring. So it's not going to affect. I mean, sometimes earlier on it affected my ability to feed myself to some degree, I guess. But most of the time it doesn't, and it hasn't for a decade or more. Where it's the money I'm losing, I could afford to lose. So
well, and if you put caps on it like that, then it really opens up your whole mindset. Really, it's like yeah, you know where your bottom always will be, and your top level can be anywhere, and it's always good when it's top level. So you're not really worried about where that ends up, but that containment must be a nice way to walk into a tournament with that open mindset. You've got a lot of clarity through thinking that way, and you have a plan, and you have expertise and knowledge, and you have your focus, and that just sounds like running a business to me.
You just described a successful business right there,
right?
In that exact explanation, and that couldn't cap this episode off better.
Wow. Well, we could if we were both getting free drinks down in Vegas. I would start drinking.
Those free drinks are not free.
I would start drinking if I was there with you again.
Yeah.
And probably
I'm not going to be responsible for. Yeah, exactly.
Yeah.
Sam comes down here and never returns.
Now I'm thinking leaving Las Vegas, and I'm thinking, Gonzo reporting, and geez, I could be your attorney.
Exactly. I'd have to.
Let me confer with my attorney. Oh my goodness.
Awesome.
Well, Calen, thanks for taking time out from your busy gambling schedule.
No, I'm happy to do it, and I believe in what I'm doing down here, and I also believe there's a lot of good info for business people in this world, and I don't recommend it. Like, don't go and do it to find out about business. Don't learn business by going and playing poker, but it's a very good lesson in life down playing this game and doing this kind of stuff. So I think there's a lot of lessons that I can transfer. The gift that I can give back is just transferring some knowledge and the idea of how to run a successful business.
Well, how can
as it pertains to gambling?
How can we save people a plane ticket to Vegas and $10,000 and 50,000 hours worth of gambling? Are there books on game theory? Are there books on comparing poker to business? I don't know. I assume there must be.
There will. I'll put some links on this episode of some game theory, but also more just about risk assessment, risk analysis.
Right.
I think the risk analysis is the most underutilized skill or information base for entrepreneurs and business people in general. They overestimate the gold and underestimate the coal. So you got to overestimate the coal to a large degree, but then also understand, that little gray area where you do have to take some risks, but, fully understand the risk ahead of time. And that's probably the best advice you can get in anything, is just really know what the downside is. And then if you're happy with that and prepared for that, then that's great. Then you know what all the risks are. And then you can be really happy to receive the reward when it comes, because it will come.
Right on. Okay. I'm dying to ask this one last question from you. How's the food? What's the best thing you've eaten down there? Have you been to a David Chang restaurant? Have you been anywhere super fancy?
No. Well, I went to this restaurant that's been around. The name escapes me. I'll put it down in the notes. But it was an Italian restaurant that's been around. The name, the brand, and the owner has been around for 30 years. And it was amazing. They moved to a new location, I think probably like 3 or 4 years ago. And I had a friend of ours invite us for dinner there, and it was amazing. Like, it was really, really, really good. We're going to Another friend's birthday is coming up on Saturday, so we're gonna go out for a nice meal then. There's plenty, like there's no bad places really to eat in Vegas. There's so many great locations, and just pick your food type and yeah, just
Well,
know your limits and stay within it.
know your limits and stay within it. Nice. All right. Have you got our members list in front of you, or do you want me to run through this?
I think we got it pre-recorded. Do we not? I think we do.
Oh
Did we do
yeah,
that?
we were
Yeah.
super smart last time, weren't we? Not so smart this time because I forgot.
Not so smart.
Well, we
Sam,
do have
you're amazing.
we do have a new member that we should at least
Plug.
mention. It's
Yes.
Sweets by Selena.
Oh, excellent.
Yeah. So Sweets
And
by Selena is now a member.
That's good. I think I like that. Let's announce new membership.
That's a great way to go because we got everything else in the bag, man. It's in the bag.
We're
So-
just the best now.
Yeah, what's going on with you for the rest of the day? This is a really early morning recording session. As you can probably tell, I'm drinking lots of coffee all the way through this, and I've got a full day ahead of me. How about you?
I'm gonna do some work, and then one of my best friends' birthday today as well.
Oh.
So we're gonna go for a nice dinner, and then I don't play again, like really play again until Sunday. So next week is a busy week for me. I'll be kind of like going 24/7 next week, and then I'll probably be back in Victoria the week after or the week after that, depending on how it goes.
I hope you're there for a long time, but I want you back
Yes.
soon.
Oh, I could just hug you.
I know it feels like you're really far away there, brother, but there you go. There's a big hug for you too. It is kind of neat sitting in your chair though, so take your
don't
time.
get too comfy, bro.
Take
Don't
your
get too
time, win
comfy.
lots of money, and just
Yes,
don't come back too
yes.
soon. This seat's
Yeah,
more
yeah.
comfortable than mine, and I like the view better.
Oh, I love it.
All right, man.
We'll have some guests on our next episode.
Great. I look forward to it, and as always, it's been a real pleasure, Calen.
Be kind, Sam.
Be nice, Calen.
Take
Take good care of
Later.
yourself and win $1
Cheers.
million. I'm going to change it. I want green 16.
Green 16.
Yeah.
You can't do greens, black or red, bro.
Oh.
I think you can do green 16.
Okay.
Is there green 16?
I don't know.
I'll find
You're
out.
in Vegas. If not, I want black.
Okay, black 16.
Yeah.
Done.
Done.
Bread and Butter Collective's membership includes the following local businesses: 2% Jazz, 900 Degrees Wood-Fired Pizzeria, Agrius, Big Wheel Burger, Blue Mountain Solutions, Bodega Tapas Wine Bar, Brentwood Bay Village Emporium, Nourish and Charlotte the Quail, Victoria Chocolate and Company, Drum Roaster Coffee, Habit Coffee, Foo Asian Street Food, the Culinary Arts Program at Camosun, Cafe Fantastico, Fall Epi, Harold Street Brewworks, Hey Happy, House of Botang, Hoyne Brewing, Jetty Marie's Cracker Company, La Pasta, La Rue Patisserie, Mocha House, Part and Parcel, Poco a Pinto Bar, Pizzeria Prima Strada, Rain Dogs, Roast, Table 9 Consulting, Sherwood Cafe and Bar, Sweets by Selena, The Collective Wine Bar and Kitchen, The Drake, Tapa Bar, Taco Stand Al Pastor, Toque, The Whole Beast, The Wienery, and Zambries.
To hear more from the Bread and Butter Collective, go to checknews.ca/podcasts on Check Plus or find us on your favorite podcasting platform.